This portion of the John Fredericks Show is brought to you by Hargrave Military Academy. Attend an educational and informative open house event at Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia. For more information, visit online at hargrave.edu. Hargrave Military Academy. Build his future.
Joining us now, been on our show many times, Audrey Hudson. She's a former writer for the Washington Times and investigative reporter. She was also with Eagle Publishing and wrote for a long time for Human Events when they still had that weekly magazine in print. And now she's got a story to tell that is really going to get you fired up. Audrey, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, John.
Look, Audrey, it's been a while, and normally we have you on and we're talking about other people. Now we have you on, we're talking about Audrey Hudson because in a story that broke on Friday, done by Guy Taylor, who I think we're having on tomorrow, in the Washington Times. Taylor, we understand, had a chance to interview and spend some time. I don't want to steal your thunder, but essentially federal agents busted into your home with a search warrant for firearms they thought your husband had, and then ended up seizing your documents on your investigation of them, and didn't really search for anything else. Can you tell our audience what exactly went down that day in the wee hours of the morning?
Well, actually, they came in with a search warrant to look for potato launcher parts.
Okay, potato launcher.
They claimed that my husband had purchased a potato launcher online about 5 years ago. And they claimed that potato launcher is code for silencer. So they came into my house with a search warrant for the potato launcher. But what they did was essentially they stole my confidential notes. Now, they don't have the authority to take my files. A reporter's files are actually protected under the Privacy Protection Act. It says government can only look at a reporter's notes under specific circumstances, and they did not have the authority to look at or take my files.
So they simply came in. Now, for our audience segment that might not know what a potato launcher is, that's slang, as you say, for a silencer on a firearm.
Well, no, it's not. We've never heard that. That's what law enforcement claimed. Mm-hmm. We've never heard of such a thing. A potato launcher. It's a novelty item. Basically, you launch potatoes with it. We also have a golf ball launcher. It's mm-hmm. it's a fun thing, and that's what they entered my house with, was a search warrant for a potato launcher. And they came in about 4:30 in the morning. My barking schnauzer woke me up, and when I looked out the window, the house was literally surrounded, and marching towards my house were men in full body armor, and their guns were holstered, but they came in, Mirandized us, and spent 3 hours searching my house.
So they come in the wee hours of the morning in shock troop fashion. You know, the black van, the whole bit, the armed guard, the body armor, the nonsense that they do. So they come in, they have, as we understand it, they have a search warrant for this potato launcher that they ostensibly found that your husband was buying or had purchased sometime back online. So that's what, when they showed you the search warrant, Audrey, that was what they were looking for, right?
Right. That's what the search warrant said. However, once they were in the house, one of the Homeland Security officials asked me, the first thing he said to me, "Are you the same Audrey Hudson who wrote all of the federal air marshal stories for the Washington Times?" And I confirmed that I was, and he identified himself as a former air marshal official. Then he starts asking me, "Oh, do you know so-and-so, or do you know so-and-so?" And I just laughed and said, "No, I didn't, and even if I did, I wouldn't tell you." And when they left, they did not tell me they had taken the files. They took 5 files that contained my handwritten notes, my typed interview notes, and I did not know the files were missing until well over a month later, when they called me and said I could come pick them up. And I said, "What are you doing with them? Why did you take my files?" And he said, "Oh, well, I had to turn them over, to the Air Marshal Service to make sure it was legitimate for you to have them." So essentially, they took my files containing confidential information on whistleblowers and turned it over to the very government agency on which they were blowing the whistle.
When did this happen? When did this raid happen?
This happened
August 6th?
on August 6th.
All right, so it happened on August 6th, and now
And
you're...
I didn't find out until they had my notes until September 10th is when they called me to come pick it up. And then obviously I've consulted with a lawyer. I went to the Washington Times, who is my employer, at the time that the stories ran, and put it into their hands. And now, of course, it's in print edition today, in today's Washington Times, that the newspaper is pursuing legal action against the government agencies because they've clearly violated my First Amendment rights and the paper's rights.
Right,
so
because
that was the paper's property.
Right, because when you were accumulating that information on the whistleblowers, you were an employee of the Washington Times company.
Correct.
So you were in their employ. So essentially, they own the. Essentially, they can make.
Yeah, the story is it's their story.
Right, it's their story. So now, so the time that it took you from when you found out they stole your files illegally, they took your files. You said that was around the second week of September. And now it's the end of October, so that 6 weeks was basically you had to check with your lawyers, see what your legal rights are before you went public with the story, right?
Yeah, my major concern at the time, the reason I wanted to come forward and talk about it was I'm really concerned about my confidential sources. I'm afraid that they could be exposed, and I wanted to find a way to notify them, what's happened without picking up the phone, because here's something else that's a little scary. The search warrant said that they had actually accessed my Facebook account. And if they had accessed my Facebook account, what else have they got a tap and trace on my phone like they did with James Rosen and the Associated Press? So I didn't dare reach out and contact any of these guys, and going public was the best way, I thought, to let them know.
This is unbelievable. And for our audience that might not be aware, you had written, when you were with the Times, Audrey, I remember, you had written a series of stories basically from information you got from whistleblowers exposing the federal marshals on airplanes scheme, that they were saying that they were on so many planes, but in reality it was only a percentage of that, and many of them were getting paid, they were not even on the planes and things like that. So you were writing about that upset them, and now what seems to have taken place is they found a reason to raid your home on some potato gun charge. It doesn't make any sense either, and then went into your office and took the files out, which would seem to even the most layman person on the street a violation of just about every Bill of First Amendment right that we have. I mean, they came into your home with a search warrant for something that had nothing to do with what they took out, right?
It was a very trivial charge. And yes, the stories I wrote were basically, I exposed the agency officials, not the marshal themselves, but the higher-ups. I exposed the fact that they've been lying to Congress, and the stories did result in an investigation by the House Judiciary Committee. And at the time, the agency launched a witch hunt within the ranks to try and find out who my whistleblowers were, going after a lot of innocent guys who never even talked to me. So this isn't the first time that the Air Marshal Service has, in a sense, reached out and touched me.
Unquestionably violated here, Audrey. I mean, this is hard to imagine for people. I mean, you're in bed with your family. It's 4:30 a.m. You get banged on the door. Federal agents all decked out in their, SWAT team armor, guns in holsters, surrounding your house. Very nefarious, dark situation. Have a warrant for some potato gun launcher, and then take your files. And then I guess my question is, the guy that you were mentioning, the gentleman who was part of the federal marshal's executive team, why was he even at the raid?
Well, that's a question we don't even know the answer to.
What did he have to do with that?
The lead agency on the raid was the Maryland State Police,
right.
And they behaved very professionally. When they went through the house, obviously they went through everything. But what shocked me after they left, because I wasn't allowed to follow them around, but what shocked me was when I came upstairs into my office where I still work, and I have a closet filled with boxes of files, and they had pulled every single box out of my closet, and they still in the middle of the room. They had gone through everything, and out of everything in my office, out of hundreds of stories I've covered and controversies, the only thing they took were 5 files of the federal air marshal stories.
And who was the guy that you were talking to that was part of the Air Marshals organization? Who was that?
I don't have his name right in front of me.
Right,
sorry.
but he was an executive.
He was a former. He identified himself as a former federal air marshal official. Now, the air marshals are part of Homeland Security.
Right, but it seems odd that looking for a potato gun, that somebody connected with the air marshals would come into your home and engage. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. The only thing that makes sense is they needed him to verify what files they wanted. Otherwise, why would he be there? So one could draw the conclusion, like me, obviously you can't comment on it for obvious reasons, but I, as a broadcaster, can draw the conclusion they brought that guy in so that he could tell the state police what files to pull out of there in the event that you had them, because he would be the only one that could really recognize what they are. So it seems to me like they came in, they found a ridiculous reason, a potato gun or a golf launcher, come into your home, do a raid, steal the files, and check out what your sources are. I mean, is that a conclusion that I am legitimately able to draw?
Well, I can say that the Homeland Security has admitted to the fact that it was their official that took the files and not the state police. Right,
but that is a conclusion that a third party like me could draw, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. We're going to have you back. We're going to have Guy Taylor on tomorrow. We're going to keep with this story. It's got to get out there.